Hi everybody, hope you're doing fine today. So today's recipe is going to be quite a simple one. A lot of people are usually afraid to make it or never even tried it. But in fact, it's extremely easy to make, requires a few ingredients, just a little patience. To help me out as usual, we'll have my daughter Alyssa, as well as my son Anthony. To start off, Anthony's going to give you the ingredients for the recipe of today, which is going to be a risotto, however flavored with vegetables, and specifically this time around, a mushroom risotto.
So here we have 2 to 3 teaspoons of chopped garlic, 2 to 3 teaspoons of butter, some Parmesan cheese, 1 full chopped onion, 1 pack of washed mushrooms, some arborio rice, some white wine, some chicken broth, or you can also use vegetable broth, and also some olive oil.
Alright, for step 1 for the mushroom risotto, we're going to take our washed mushrooms, and my daughter Alyssa is going to chop them up very finely. In order to give it a more increased flavor and to avoid having big chunks, because sometimes the children don't like the big chunks, we're going to use a hand blender to chop it out very, very, very thinly. Go ahead, Alyssa. So once we're finished chopping the mushrooms, it should look something like this. Next step is to take the mushrooms and prepare it before the risotto and not just throwing it in at the end. So we start our stove, put some olive oil. Alyssa, the garlic. And the mushrooms. Could I have the mushrooms, please? Thank you. We will saute the mushrooms for a couple of minutes. And flavor it with some salt. Could I have some salt, Alyssa? Could I have the plate, please? Thank you. So you cook it down for about maybe 2-3 minutes. All right, so after maybe a couple of minutes, it should look a bit like a bit of a paste if you want, but not too soggy. Not too soggy and not too overcooked. All right, so you set that aside. We'll incorporate it a bit later to the risotto. So now we can start the risotto. So while I add a bit of oil, Alyssa, give me the onions. A couple of tablespoons of oil. The onions, 1 chopped onion. So we're gonna saute the onions for maybe sweating them out for maybe a minute or 2. As you would do with onions typically in any recipe, you need to sweat them out a little bit so the taste comes out. Add a bit of salt. And to the onions, in about maybe another minute or so, we'll be adding the risotto, which is arborio rice. Alyssa's gonna bring it to me when I ask it. And then we'll simply have to incorporate slowly but surely the wine and the brodo. Very slowly on a simmered stove till the risotto is al dente or to taste. Okay, so the onions are starting to sweat out. Current temperature on the stove is high. So we'll add the risotto right now. Thank you. So we'll add the whole pack of risotto. So just blend it with the onions for maybe 30 seconds, just for it to absorb all the flavor of the onions as well as the oil. Alright, so it seems to be quite dry. And to this, always at a high temperature up until this point, I'll add my wine. So basically I have maybe a cup and a half of wine. We'll probably go up to about 2 cups of wine, but it's to flavor. So now, this is what making risotto is all about. Slowly but surely adding on the liquids to the rice and making sure it gets absorbed evenly without sticking at the bottom. This is the part that's a bit more of a time-consuming part, but usually 10 to 15 minutes we'll be able to complete the recipe. So we add in the wine. And when we see the wine is absorbed or starting to get absorbed, always constantly turning, we'll slowly incorporate the chicken stock little by little. You never want the rice to dry out, because if it dries out, it has a risk of sticking at the bottom or burning, and it'll give a bad taste to your rice. So constantly turning it around, making sure it keeps moist, and adding your liquids on a constant basis. Time to add a bit more liquid. So very, very little amounts of liquid at a time. Probably half a cup at a time. Basically, that's all you need to do till the end of the recipe. And when the rice starts to be al dente, as we say in Italian. So you see, at a certain point, the rice will absorb the liquids pretty quickly. You just need to maintain constant stirring and also adding the broth. Probably, I would say, half a cup to a cup at a time, and that typically would take maybe 2-3 minutes. All right, so we've almost gone through 2.5 liters to about 2 liters of chicken stock, and I see that the consistency of the risotto is almost ready. If you're not sure, you could always taste. Make sure not to double dip. Okay, so I would say there's maybe a minute or 2 of cooking. So at that point, we could reincorporate for flavoring the mushrooms that we set aside, or it could be anything that you've prepared or you want to flavor your risotto with. It could be other vegetables, it could be fish, it could be whatever taste or risotto you enjoy. So we simply add the mushrooms in, stirring it consistently. So we can see that the creaminess and the stickiness of the risotto is almost there. So the process in itself took about, what time is it now? Took about 15-20 minutes, depending on the temperature of your stove and the amount of rice that you're preparing. And like I said, we went through about 2 boxes of the broths. So the temperature is on simmer at this point, at a lower temperature, simply to have the risotto take the flavor and absorb the flavor of the mushrooms. So this is about, I don't know, maybe 2 to 5 minutes prior to it being cooked. And at this point, when you have about a minute left to cook, you add the butter. So Alyssa could have the butter. So we'll add the butter. I'll be getting my plates. And we'll be adding at the end the cheese. So once the butter is mixed in, we'll turn off the temperature at this point. Simply stirring in the butter and adding the cheese. So the cheese, this is the part where it's really to flavor. You could add as much cheese and as little cheese as you prefer. I prefer not to put too much for the saltiness, and then after leave it up to your guests and family members or friends that you have over to decide if they want to add some extra cheese afterwards. So we mix that all in. Starts to smell the mushrooms and cheese, and we're pretty much done with the risotto. So basically, at this point, the recipe is pretty much finished. And we'll be able to prepare our servings. So as you can see with the recipe we've shown you today, which was a pack of 750 grams of arborio rice, we have about 5 to 8 portions depending on the size. Thank you very much. Hope you've enjoyed the recipe. Hope your guests will enjoy the risotto. I'd like to thank my assistant Alyssa that helped me out with the ingredients, my son Anthony that's behind the camera and helped us with the ingredients at the beginning, and hope to see you soon. Take care. Thank you.